Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This will be the first of hopefully a series of videos about self-publishing and DIY stuff for authors. In this one I'll be talking about what makes a good cover and a bad one, and don't worry, I'll only be using my own. So before we begin, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to covervault.com, where this mock-up you're looking at came from. Also, I'm using a nifty little program called Corel Video Studio to record this, so good things to check out. Now brace yourself because horror is about to happen. Okay, there's an overwhelming amount of bad happening with this cover, so let's just break it down one thing at a time. First of all, the background with the neon pink and green it's just, let's face it, bad. The shadowing around the edges also not helping. The face I'm not even going to talk about because I don't even know what that was supposed to be. I think I was trying to make it look like it's kind of pushing out through the code, and I tried to hand warp it and it didn't work and it just came out awful. Now the title and my author name is a serif font, which is not usually a good choice for techie kind of sci-fi themes, which already is a bad choice, but then I made it the same green color as the ones and zeros, which just makes it blend into the background and it just does not work at all. So obviously this cover never really saw the light of day, but I'm including it because it's actually the first cover I ever tried to make in GIMP. And I'm using it to illustrate that you always have to start somewhere, and there's always going to be a lot of trial and error, and eventually you will get to where you actually have a workable cover, but it's going to take some time to get there, so be patient and stick with it. This is the cover that actually got published on this book in 2014, and it's already a huge improvement over the last version you saw. The biggest improvement is that I actually used stock images this time. There's 3 of them in this image. There's the flashy lights background, the portrait of a man, and the CG wireframe face superimposed over the portrait. So the thing to see in this one is how the 3 images are blended together. You can't really tell where one starts and the other one ends. There's no rough edges, there's no stray white pixels or anything like that. If you zoom in, you can actually see that the background kind of superimposes over the edge of the man's face on the right side, which kind of makes him part of the background itself. And the wireframe also stretches over his entire face, except on the right side it's a little softer, so you can't really see it as much. So this is basically going from the virtual to the physical back to the virtual, and it's kind of seamless transition, so they're both happening at the same time. Technically, this is a pretty decent cover. There's nothing wrong with it that the eye can see, but I still have stylistic issues with it. First of all, the spacing of the author name and the title around the edges makes the space feel smaller, which means it kind of feels a little claustrophobic looking at the face off to the side. Second of all, the background colors, the pinks and the yellows, make it look a little bit outdated, like something out of the 90s, and for a book that's about a smart house in the future, it's not really the way to go, which is why I actually ended up sprucing this up this year. So this is the newest incarnation of this cover, and in my opinion it's the best one yet, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but let's go one by one. First of all, it feels like a scene. You have the setting, you have the man in the background, and you have the kind of overlaid half circle type design that makes you feel a little bit removed from it, which is kind of keeping with the virtual theme. When you zoom in, you actually see that there's something not quite right with the man. He's actually transparent. You can see the window ledge behind him, and the fractured light beams coming off from the top right corner give you the impression that this is actually a hologram. Also, you can tell by the way that he's laughing at nothing, basically. The title font is the only thing that remained the same. It's the same font, it's just a little cleaner, and it's horizontal instead of vertical. You can also see the light beams coming out of the V that's continuing the virtual theme. The author name below is a little offset for a more stylistic touch, I guess, but it's all still readable and very clean and a very inviting cover. So here you have the 3 covers side by side, and I just want to make sure everyone understands that these did not happen overnight. There's actually several years that went by between each and every one of them. In those years I basically spent learning GIMP and improving my skill set, and basically just researching covers, what I liked, what I didn't like, and how I could use those ideas and tools to improve my own designs. So the last thing I want to talk about is this concept of starting big to go small. And in graphics terms, what that means is it's always easier to take a big graphic and make it smaller than go the other way. What it means for cover design is if there's even the smallest possibility that you might want to make your book available in print at some point in the future, always start with the print cover first, because that'll make it easier to adapt it into an ebook version later on. So this is the print cover I created for Virtual, and you'll notice it's basically the same scene you saw in the ebook version, except a wider view of it. And you also have the second main character on their left-hand side. A couple of things to notice about this one is that the half circles at the top and the bottom are a little easier to see when you're on the wider screen version, and the text on the back is actually over a shaded area that makes it a little easier to read. Another thing to notice is that this is basically one seamless scene going from the front cover through the spine to the back cover. This is actually the layout I prefer to have on all of my print cover versions, and there's a reason for that is because during the printing process, things tend to shift left and right a little bit. So if you have hard edges around the corners, they can end up sometimes being where you don't really want them to be and kind of ruining your cover in the process. And that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll give it a like, and I'll see you next time dissecting the anatomy of the newest Virtual cover in GIMP. Thanks for watching!